A day in the life of a nobody. A day in the life of a nobody.
Okay, so one of my pet kind of issues is crying. I find it very, very difficult to cry. So on a kind of sort of surface level, I feel stupid. I feel like I'm being self-indulgent. I feel like I'm being self-pitying. And I feel like I look stupid. So I always have this, sounds stupid I know, but I always have this kind of thing where I sort of an out-of-body experience where I'm looking at myself going, you look such a twat. And that is in stark contrast with, say, Gemma, my wife, you know, and a lot of other people I know who have no shame in crying and cry whenever, and, you know, and it's completely fair. I mean, why shouldn't they? And I don't judge them harshly for it. However, I suppose with people crying, I do have an automatic response, which is right. I feel I have to do something to make them feel better, which is, you know, difficult. If for example, you know, Gemma and I are having an argument and she gets upset and cries, and I'm like, but we're arguing. I can't make you feel better because I'm still on the other side at the minute. But what does it all come from? Is the big question, isn't it? And I suppose intrinsically one imagines it comes from conditioning in your childhood, when you're told to stop being a baby, grow up, or stop being silly, or boys don't cry, you know. And then of course I went to one of those special, you know, not a special school, but a public school. Yeah, I'm afraid so. And of course that was very frowned upon. My God, if you caught crying by some of the other sort of boys and the masters, it was, you know, you were laughed at and mocked because you were being a baby, you know, acting like a girl. That seems all fairly obvious, really, isn't it? Just conditioning. But I know, you know, I know other people who can, men, I mean, who find it, been through a similar sort of background to me, but they find it easy enough to cry. They're not ashamed by it. I'm ashamed of it. I feel ashamed. With no reason. I'm not saying it's a shameful thing. I'm just saying I feel ashamed. And that's quite damaging in terms of, you know, because I sobbed a bit when my dad died, just from the sort of shock of it, really. Not that it happened quickly, but because it was a kind of release of all the tension I'd been feeling leading up to his death. So, I mean, I probably sat there. Actually, this is quite telling. So with my mother, in fact, just after my dad had died, I was writing a eulogy. And I think this is going to explain it all. I was writing a eulogy for him, and I, you know, wrote all about the good things about him that I could remember from my childhood, and all the nice things and what the humour he sort of gave and passed on to me and all that stuff. And then I wrote about their love and how special it was and how they were made for each other and all the sort of things certainly she wanted to hear, which, you know, were largely true, really. And before we had the funeral, I read it to her, and I got a bit choked up as I got to the last paragraph about her and him and their relationship and how special they were. And my mother leaned in and said, "Oh, are you going to get through this?" That was her response. Not, "Oh, your dad's dead, my husband's dead, isn't this sad? Oh, let's be sad together." No, "Oh, are you going to get through this?" So yeah, I mean, I suppose that answers all of the questions, doesn't it? Your natural responses and your instincts feel like just that. They are natural and instinctive. And you don't consider that it actually has come from conditioning. You just think, well, that's just me. I just don't cry. I'm just not a good crier. And of course, well, I mean, you say one doesn't think of it. I don't think of it. I tend to think of it like those things didn't influence me. I just grew up naturally the way I was. But of course, they did influence me, and that is part of the person I became, was the conditioning that I was brought up under. I suppose I have to remember that. I have to kind of accept that I am a product of my upbringing and my experiences and the conditioning that gave me, rather than just go, oh no, I just thought I was, I suppose it's nature over nurture. I imagined it was all just naturally the way I was, rather as opposed to the way that I was nurtured. But of course it's not. So yeah, you're all well ahead of me there, I'm sure. But one of my very best friends died and passed away sort of suddenly about 4 or 5 years ago, and I found that very hard. It hit me very hard, and there were a couple of times I choked up while just talking about him to friends. Probably the most I've choked up in 40, 45 years, I don't know, 50 years. So maybe 2 or 3 times I got a bit choked up about it. And I remember Gemma very kindly saying, oh, it's all right to cry. And it was like no, and it stopped me immediately. I didn't want, it made me feel, and it wasn't her fault. She was being really kind and pleasant and, and considerate and thoughtful and everything else. And for me, it made it horrible. I didn't want it to be noticed that I was crying or choked up or anything. I didn't want to draw attention to it. I wanted it to be over. Stamp it out, get rid of it quickly. I mean, sad, isn't it? I wonder if it's got anything to do with being, and please don't feel sorry for me, because I don't feel sorry for myself on this at all, but being hit as a child, it was very common, happened to me a lot. I wasn't, I was always, as my mother described it, showing off. Stop showing off, Adrian, just stop showing off. Which usually meant I was being cheeky, I was trying to be funny. So I would get what was called a howgill. And the howgills were friends of ours. And the dad, they had 2 boys, and the dad of the howgills, to reprimand his children, he used to lay into them like nothing on earth. It was shocking. And do it in front of us, in front of the visiting family. It was absolutely shocking. And I was always threatened, if you do that again, you'll get a howgill. And periodically, of course, I did do it again, whatever it was, and get a howgill, which was a damn good thrubbing. And of course, that meant that I might conceivably end up crying. So I suppose I fought it. I absolutely fought against it, not to cry, however much it hurt. So I didn't. So I used to sit there, just soaking it all up, gritting my teeth, not crying. So yeah, that'll be another side to it, to show that I wasn't beaten. I was me, I was doing me, whether they liked it or not. That was a little independent, streak that kind of, I suppose, gets bigger as you get older, but anyway. Yeah, so there's that. And the little addendum to that is that I was beaten because I was a boy. My sister wasn't. And it's not, nothing to do with her, it wasn't her fault. But it was considered that it was allowed, it was okay for me to be beaten because I was a boy. And it was okay for her not to be beaten because she was a girl. I mean, clearly, in today's modern thinking, it's not okay for anybody to be beaten, but I mean, what sort of conditioning is that? No wonder I sort of stopped crying. P.S. The last time I was beaten, or attempted to be beaten by my father, was when I was 17. We were on holiday somewhere, and my sister and I had an argument. And you wait till your father gets home. And I was like, what? And what's going to happen then? And then, yeah, he attempted to, and I restrained him, and that didn't go down well. Yeah, that was fun.
And it would be so funny, it would be so funny if I had $1 for everyone. And it would be so funny, it would be so funny, the day in the life of a nobody. And it would be so funny, it would be so funny if I had $1 for everyone. And it would be so funny, it would be so funny, the day